The morning sun rose over Nova Bizan like it did every day. Golden light touched the endless fields of wheat and rice that stretched across the valley. Children ran to school with bags on their backs. Farmers walked between the crops, checking the soil and the water systems. It was a peaceful morning on a peaceful world. Admiral Park Do-won stood on the observation deck of the Orbital Defense Station, looking down at the planet below. He was 62 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many battles. But those battles were behind him now. For the past 5 years, he had commanded this quiet post. Watching over the farmers and families below. Nova Bizan was humanity's largest farming colony. Over 4 million people lived there, growing food that fed dozens of other human worlds. There were no weapons factories here. No military bases on the surface. Just simple people living simple lives. Do-won liked it that way. After 40 years in the military, he had grown tired of war. He wanted to spend his remaining years watching the wheat grow and waiting for messages from his daughter. His daughter, Park Ji-young, lived on the surface with her husband and 2 sons. She was a school teacher who loved her work. Every week, she sent her father videos of the boys playing in the fields, laughing and chasing each other through the tall grass. Those videos were the best part of Do-won's week. Commander Yoon Harry walked onto the observation deck and stood beside him. She was younger, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a mind that never stopped working. She had been warning Do-won for months about strange movements near the border. "Admiral," she said, "we have received word that a Velith diplomatic ship is approaching. They say they want to discuss trade agreements." Do-won nodded slowly. The Velith Dominion was a powerful alien empire that controlled nearly 50 worlds. They had never been friendly with humans, but they had never been openly hostile either. For 30 years, the 2 species had maintained an uncomfortable peace. "Let them come," Do-won said. "We have nothing to hide here." Harry frowned. "Sir, I do not trust them. My intelligence reports suggest they have been testing our defenses for months. Small probes, scanning ships. They are looking for something." "They are always looking," Do-won replied. "That is what empires do. But they know that attacking us would start a war they cannot win." Harry wanted to argue, but she held her tongue. She respected the Admiral, even when she disagreed with him. 3 hours later, the Velith ship arrived. But it was not alone. Harry was the first to see the readings on her screen. Her blood went cold. "Admiral, multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. I count 47 warships." Do-won turned from the window, his face going pale. "That is not a diplomatic mission. That is an invasion fleet." Before he could give any orders, the first shots were fired. The orbital station shook as Velith weapons tore through its shields. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Crew members ran to their battle stations, but there were not enough of them. Nova Bizan was not built for war. "Get me a channel to the surface," Do-won shouted over the noise. "We need to evacuate the colonies." But the Velith were faster. Their troop transports were already descending through the atmosphere, landing in the cities and towns below. Thousands of alien soldiers poured out, their weapons ready. On the surface, Park Ji-young was teaching her class when the explosion started. The windows of the school shattered inward, and children screamed. She gathered them quickly, pushing them toward the basement. "Stay together," she called out. "Stay quiet." But there was nowhere to hide. The Velith soldiers moved through the streets with cold efficiency. They were not taking prisoners. They were not making demands. They were simply killing everyone they found. Ji-young held her 2 sons close as the sounds of gunfire grew closer. Her youngest, only 6 years old, was crying into her shoulder. Her oldest, 8, was trying to be brave, but his hands were shaking. "It will be okay," she whispered to them, even though she knew it was a lie. Mommy is here. Mommy will protect you. The door burst open. In orbit, Admiral Do-hwan could only watch as his station burned around him. The main screen showed feeds from the surface, images that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Velith soldiers marching through streets filled with bodies. Homes burning. People running and falling and not getting up again. And then he saw it. A camera feed from the school district. He saw Velith soldiers dragging civilians out of buildings. He saw a woman trying to shield two small children with her body. He saw the soldiers raise their weapons. He saw his daughter die. The feed cut to static, but Do-hwan could not look away. His hands gripped the console so hard that his knuckles turned white. Something inside him broke. Something that had been holding him together for 62 years simply shattered into 1,000 pieces. Commander. Harry grabbed his arm. Admiral, we need to evacuate. The station is lost. Do-hwan did not move. He could not move. His eyes were still fixed on the static where his daughter's face had been. The massacre lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 4.2 million people were dead. Men, women, children, elderly. The Velith did not care. They killed them all with the same cold efficiency. And they broadcast everything. Across the galaxy, humans watched in horror as the Velith transmitted the massacre on all frequencies. They saw the streets filled with bodies. They heard the screams. They watched children die in their parents' arms. The Velith High Sovereign appeared on the broadcast. His alien face twisted into something that might have been a smile. Let this be a lesson, he said, to all species who forget their place. Humans are not our equals. They are prey, and prey should remember to be afraid. The broadcast ended. For a long moment, there was silence across human space. Billions of people sat frozen in front of their screens, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Parents held their children close. Soldiers clenched their fists. Old men who had seen many wars felt tears running down their faces, and then the silence broke. Admiral Do-hwan was pulled from the wreckage of his station by a rescue team. He had survived, though he did not know how or why. When they brought him to the medical bay, he refused treatment. He refused food. He refused to speak. For 3 days, he sat in silence, staring at nothing. Then, on the 4th day, he stood up. He put on his uniform. He walked to the communication center. "Get me a channel to Earth," he said. His voice was different now, cold, empty. "Get me the Federation Council." The young officer at the console looked up at him with fear in her eyes. She had heard what happened. Everyone had heard. "Yes, Admiral," she whispered. When the connection was established, Do-hwan spoke only 4 words. "I am coming home." Back on Earth, the Federation Council was already in chaos. Representatives from all 12 colonies were screaming at each other, demanding action, demanding answers, demanding blood. But deep in the military research facilities, scientists who had been sleeping peacefully were suddenly called back to work. Projects that had been buried for decades were unsealed. Weapons that had been forbidden were brought back into the light. Humanity had always believed in peace. They had always believed in diplomacy and understanding. They had always believed that violence was the last resort of the uncivilized. The Velith had just proven them wrong. And now, humanity was about to prove something too. The Federation Council chamber in Sol Prime was the largest room on Earth. It could hold 10,000 people, and today every seat was filled. Representatives from all 12 human colonies sat in their designated sections. Military officers lined the walls. Journalists broadcast everything to billions of viewers across human space. But the room was silent. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. They were all waiting. Admiral Park Do-hwan walked through the main doors, and every eye turned to follow him. He looked different than he had a week ago. His back was straighter. His eyes were darker. The gentle old man who had watched over farmers was gone. In his place was something harder, something colder. He walked to the central platform and stood before the council. For a long moment, he simply looked at them, studying their faces one by one. "I watched my daughter die," he said finally. His voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the massive room. "I watched my grandsons die. I watched 4.2 million of our people die. And I watched the Velith laugh while they did it." The silence in the room grew heavier. They did not attack our military. They did not strike our weapons factories or our fleet stations. They attacked farmers, teachers, children. He paused. They did this because they wanted to send a message. They wanted us to know that we are nothing to them, that we are prey. Representative Kim Johan from the Mars colony stood up. He was known for his careful diplomacy and his belief in peaceful solutions. "Admiral, we share your grief. All of humanity shares your grief. But we must be careful. A war with the Velith Dominion could cost billions of lives. Perhaps we should seek diplomatic channels. Perhaps we should appeal to the Galactic Assembly for support." Dawan turned to look at him. The Galactic Assembly watched the broadcast. Every species in the galaxy watched the broadcast. "Do you know how many of them have contacted us to offer help?" Kim was silent. "Zero," Dawan said. "Not one. They are all waiting to see what we will do. They are all wondering if humans are truly prey." From another section, General Beek Sunho rose to his feet. He was the commander of the Terran ground forces, a man who had spent his career advocating for restraint and measured responses. His voice was usually calm and steady. Today, it was made of iron. "I have served the Federation for 35 years, he said. "In that time, I have always believed that war should be the last option. I have always believed that we should seek peace whenever possible." He paused, and his eyes met Dohwan's. "But there is no peace to be found here. The Velith did not give us a choice. They decided that our children's lives were worth nothing. They decided that we were not worthy of basic respect." He looked around the room. "If we do nothing, every species in the galaxy will know that humanity can be slaughtered without consequence. Our other colonies will be next. And then Earth itself." The room erupted in noise. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate war. Others called for caution. A few even suggested surrender, offering the Velith whatever they wanted to prevent more death. But then a new figure stepped forward. Dr. Kang Yoonji was 73 years old, with white hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. She had been the Federation's chief weapons researcher for 40 years before her retirement. Most people had forgotten she existed, but everyone knew her name. She had created the weapons that won the last 3 wars. She had also created weapons so terrible that the Federation had forbidden their use forever. "I received a call 2 days ago," she said, and the room fell silent again. "A request to unseal the restricted research archives. Projects that have been locked away for 20 years. Projects that we swore never to use." She looked at Dawan. "Do you know what you are asking for, Admiral?" "I know," he replied. "These weapons were not designed for war," Yoonji continued. "They were designed for extinction. If we use them, there will be nothing left of the Velith. No survivors. No cities. No history. It will be as if they never existed." Representative Kim stepped forward again. "This is madness. We cannot commit genocide. We are not monsters." "We were not monsters," General Sunho said quietly. "But they have made us choose. Either we become something terrible, or we allow our children to be slaughtered until there are no humans left." The debate raged for hours. Some argued that humanity would lose its soul if it committed such acts. Others argued that survival was more important than morality. A few suggested targeting only the Velith military, sparing the civilians. But it was Commander Yoon-Harry who ended the debate. She had been standing in the back of the room, watching and listening. Now she walked to the center platform and placed a small device on the console. "Before you decide," she said, "I want you to hear something." She pressed a button, and voices filled the chamber. Velith voices, intercepted from their military communications. "The humans scream so beautifully when they die," one voice laughed. "I have never heard such music. My unit killed 300 today," another bragged. The children were the easiest. They did not even try to run. The High Sovereign was right. Humans are prey, soft and weak and pathetic. We should have done this years ago. Harry let the recording play for 5 minutes. Then she turned it off. The room was silent. Some representatives were crying. Others looked like they wanted to be sick. A few had their fists clenched so tightly the blood dripped from their palms. "They killed our children," Harry said softly, and they laughed. "They are already planning which colony to attack next. They think we are too weak to stop them, too civilized." She looked at the council with eyes that held no mercy. "I say we teach them what humanity becomes when civilization fails." The vote was held that night. It was not unanimous, but it did not need to be. The majority spoke, and the Federation's answer was clear. Protocol Omega was activated. All restrictions on weapons research were lifted. Every ship in the human fleet was recalled to Earth. Every soldier was put on high alert. Every scientist who had ever worked on forbidden projects was contacted and brought back to duty. Admiral Do-won was given command of the largest military operation in human history. General Sun-ho would lead the ground forces. Dr. Kang Yoon-ji would provide the weapons. Commander Harry would plan the strategy. That night, Do-won stood alone in his quarters, looking at a photograph of his daughter and grandsons. They were smiling in the picture, happy and alive. He touched the image gently. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I am sorry I could not protect you. But I promise you this, they will pay. Every single one of them will pay." Across human space, the message went out on all channels. It was simple and short. Just 3 words that would change the galaxy forever. No more civility. In the military research stations, scientists began their work. Files that had been locked for decades were opened. Machines that had been powered down were activated. Test tubes containing nightmares were brought out of storage. Dr. Kang Yoon-ji walked through the main laboratory, looking at the projects she had created and then buried. Project Prometheus, a biological weapon designed to unravel alien DNA. Project Night Harvest, a fleet of automated ships that could destroy entire worlds without a single human aboard. Project Silent Choir, a weapon so terrible that even she had tried to forget about it. Her assistant, a young scientist named Lee Jung-gu, walked beside her with a pale face. "Doctor," he said, "are we really going to use these?" Yoon-ji stopped and looked at him. Her eyes were tired and sad. "When I created these weapons," she said, "I told myself they would never be used. I told myself that they were just deterrents, just threats, just possibilities." She shook her head slowly. "I was foolish. Weapons always get used eventually. That is the nature of things. But doctor, if we use them, we will kill billions. Innocent people, children." Yoon-ji was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, and her voice was heavy with grief. "The Velith did not care about our children. They killed them and laughed. They broadcast the screams for the galaxy to hear." She started walking again. Sometimes the only way to save your own children is to become the thing that monsters fear. And right now, we need to be very, very frightening. In orbit around Earth, ships were gathering. Thousands of them. the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Soldiers said goodbye to their families. Pilots checked their weapons one last time. Everyone knew that they were going to do something terrible. Everyone knew that they might not come back. But they went anyway, because on a small world called Nova Bizan, 4.2 million people had died. Farmers and teachers and children who had never hurt anyone. And the Velith had laughed. Humanity was done laughing. The storm was gathering, and soon it would break. Captain Shin Tai-woo had seen many terrible things in his 15 years of military service. He had fought in 3 border conflicts. He had rescued hostages from alien pirates. He had watched friends die in his arms. But nothing had prepared him for the briefing. Room on Station Omega Dot. He stood with his Special Forces team in a room deep underground. The walls were thick with security systems. The air smelled like metal and chemicals. Armed guards watched every door. Commander Yoon Harry stood at the front of the room. Behind her, screens showed images of weapons that Tai-woo had never seen before. "Captain," she began, "you and your team have been selected for the most important mission in human history. You will be the first to use these." She gestured at the screens. "Let me show you what we have prepared." The first image appeared. It looked like a simple metal container, no larger than a water bottle. "Project Prometheus," Harry said. "A biological weapon that targets Velith cellular structure. Once released, it spreads through the air and water. Within 6 hours, every Velith in the affected area will be dead. Their cells will simply stop working. They will fall asleep and never wake up." One of Tai-woo's soldiers, Sergeant Nam Ji-won, raised her hand. "Commander, what about collateral damage? What about other species in the area? Prometheus is designed to target only Velith biology. It cannot affect humans or any other known species." Harry paused. "It is, however, completely incurable. There is no vaccine. There is no treatment. Once it is released, every Velith in range will die." The next image showed a fleet of small, sleek ships with no windows. "Project Night Harvest," Harry continued. "Automated attack drones. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a small city. They do not require pilots. They do not require orders. Once activated, they will hunt and destroy every Velith military target they can find until they run out of fuel." Tai-woo felt his stomach turn. "Commander, those are not weapons of war. Those are weapons of genocide." Harry turned to look at him directly. "Yes, Captain. They are. And we are supposed to use them? That is your mission." The room was silent. Tai-woo looked at his team. They were all experienced soldiers, hardened by years of combat. But he could see the doubt in their eyes. The fear. The horror. "Permission to speak freely, Commander," he said. "Granted. I joined the military to protect people, to save lives. What you are asking us to do, this is not protection. This is extermination." Harry walked toward him. Her face was calm, but her eyes held something dark. "Captain, I understand your hesitation. I really do. But let me ask you something." She pulled out a small device and pressed a button. The screen behind her changed to show images from Nova Bizan. Bodies in the streets. Burning buildings. A young woman lying dead with 2 small children in her arms. "That woman was Admiral Do-hwan's daughter," Harry said softly. "Those children were his grandsons. She was a schoolteacher. She had never hurt anyone in her life. And the Velith killed her while she tried to protect her students." She pointed to another image. A hospital destroyed. Medical staff lying dead beside their patients. This was the Central Medical Center. The Velith bombed it first. They wanted to make sure nobody could treat the wounded. Another image. A playground covered in blood. This was a school. 200 children. Not a single survivor. Harry turned off the device and faced Taiwu again. The Veleth did not show mercy. They did not spare the innocent. They killed everyone because they believed we were weak. They believed we were prey. Her voice hardened. Now, Captain, I am asking you to prove them wrong. I am asking you to make them pay for what they did. Taiwu was silent for a long moment. Then he looked at his team again. He saw the same conflict in their faces that he felt in his heart, but he also saw something else. Anger, grief, and a cold, hard determination. What are our targets? He asked finally. Harry smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The first target is the Veleth Military Command Center on Kethprime. Your team will infiltrate the planet and deploy Prometheus in their water supply. The automated fleet will handle the rest. When do we leave? Tomorrow. Get some rest, Captain. You will need it. That night, Taiwu could not sleep. He lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what he was about to do. He thought about his own family, his mother, who lived in a small house in the mountains, his younger sister, who was studying medicine at the university, his niece, only 4 years old, who always laughed when she saw him. He thought about what would happen if the Veleth came for them. If they broke down the door and raised their weapons and laughed while they killed everyone he loved. Something cold settled in his chest. Something hard. Something dangerous. Fine, he whispered to the darkness. If we have to become monsters to protect our families, then monsters we will be. Across the station, other soldiers were having similar thoughts. Lieutenant O'Meara sat in the communication center, monitoring Veleth transmissions. She was young, only 25, with a gentle face and kind eyes. Before the massacre, she had believed in diplomacy. She had believed that all species could find common ground. Now she listened to the Veleth celebrate. The High Sovereign is planning the next attack, one voice said. He wants to hit their manufacturing worlds. Kill their ability to make weapons. Good, another laughed. The more we kill, the less they can fight back. They are cowards anyway. Did you see how they died? They did not even try to resist. Marie's hands trembled as she recorded the transmission. She saved it and added it to the growing file of Veleth communications. Every word, every laugh, every plan. Commander Harry had asked her to collect evidence. Evidence that would justify what humanity was about to do. Evidence that would prove the Veleth were not innocent victims. But Mireille did not need evidence anymore. She had heard enough. In the command center, Admiral Do-Hwan reviewed the final battle plans with General Sunho. Maps of Veleth territory covered the walls. Red markers showed their military bases. Blue markers showed civilian population centers. We will hit Kethprime first, Do-Hwan said. It is their main military command center. Once it falls, their coordination will collapse. Sunho nodded. What about the civilian worlds? Do-Hwan was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was flat. No exceptions. Admiral, there are billions of Veleth civilians. Many of them had nothing to do with the massacre. Women, children, elderly. I know. If we kill them all, we will be no better than the Veleth themselves. Do-Hwan turned to face his old friend. His eyes were empty. The Veleth killed our children because they believed we were weak. They believed we would cry and beg and negotiate. They believed we would forgive because that is what civilized species do. He shook his head slowly. I am done being civilized. I am done being weak. And I am done watching my people die while the galaxy laughs at us. Sunho opened his mouth to argue, but Do-Hwan raised his hand. I know what this will cost us, old friend. I know we will carry this guilt for the rest of our lives. But I will carry the guilt of 1,000 Veleth worlds if it means our children will never be slaughtered again. Sunho was silent for a long time. Then he sighed and looked back at the maps. Where do we begin? Keth Prime, tomorrow. The next day, Captain Taiwu and his team boarded a stealth ship. They carried enough Prometheus to kill a world. Behind them, the automated fleet of night harvest drones powered up their engines. As the ship launched into space, Taiwu looked back at Earth one last time. The blue and green planet where he was born. The only home he had ever known. "Stay safe," he whispered. "We will make them pay." In orbit, thousands of ships formed into battle lines. The largest fleet in human history, armed with the most terrible weapons ever created. And at the head of the fleet, Admiral Dowan gave the order. "All ships, engage." Protocol Omega is now active. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The war of extinction had begun. Keth Prime was a beautiful world. It had oceans the color of liquid gold and mountains that touched the clouds. 30 million Velith lived there, along with the largest military base in the entire Dominion. Commander Veltheron stood on the balcony of the military headquarters, looking up at the night sky. He was proud of what his people had accomplished at Nova Bizan. The humans had been weak, just as he always knew they were. They had cried and begged and died like the inferior species they were. Now the galaxy would respect the Velith. Now everyone would know their power. "Commander," one of his officers called from inside. "We are detecting unusual activity at the edge of the system." Theron turned and walked back to the command center. Screens showed dots appearing near the outer planets. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. "What is that?" he demanded. The officer's face went pale. "Sir, I think it is the human fleet." Theron laughed. "Impossible. The humans do not have enough ships to threaten us. They are probably just here to surrender." But the dots kept appearing. More and more. Thousands of ships pouring out of hyperspace like water through a broken dam. "Sir," the officer whispered, "they have brought everything." The first wave of ships did not attack. They simply moved into position around the planet, blocking every escape route. Then a single message was broadcast on all frequencies. "Velith forces on Keth Prime. This is Admiral Park Dowan of the Terran, Vengeance Fleet. You killed 4.2 million of our people. You laughed while our children died. Now it is your turn." Commander Theron grabbed the communication console. "Human, you cannot threaten us. The Velith Dominion has the largest military in the sector. You will be destroyed." There was a pause. Then Dowan's voice returned, calm and cold. "We are not here to threaten. We are here to demonstrate." The human ships began releasing something into the atmosphere. Millions of tiny silver containers, falling like rain across the entire planet. Theron watched them descend with confusion. "What are those? Bombs?" The answer came 3 hours later. It started in the coastal cities. Velith workers suddenly collapsed at their stations. Soldiers fell asleep and did not wake up. Doctors rushed to help their patients, only to fall themselves. The silver containers had carried Prometheus. The biological weapon spread through the air and water faster than anyone could track. Within 6 hours, the virus had reached every corner of the planet. 30 million Velith died in a single night. They simply stopped breathing. Their cellular structure unraveled quietly, peacefully, completely. When morning came, Keth Prime was silent. The human fleet moved in to survey the results. Captain Taiwu led his team to the surface to confirm what the sensors already showed. He walked through streets filled with bodies. Soldiers frozen at their posts. Families lying together in their homes. Children who had been playing when the virus took them. Sergeant Nam Jiwon stood beside him, her face pale behind her helmet. "Captain," she said quietly, "they are all dead. Every single one." Taiwu nodded slowly. He felt sick. He felt angry. He felt nothing at all. "Report to the Admiral," he said. Keth Prime is neutralized. Back on the command ship, Admiral Dohan received the report without expression. Commander Harry stood beside him, watching the data scroll across her screen. "The Velith Dominion has received our message," she said. "Their High Sovereign is mobilizing the entire military. They outnumber us 3-1. Dohan nodded. "Good. Let them come. Sir, I want them all in one place. It will make this faster." The Velith response was exactly what Dohan had predicted. They were furious. They were terrified. And they were completely unprepared. High Sovereign Vel Thomas himself led the counterattack. He gathered every warship the Dominion possessed and charged toward the human fleet. In the history of his species, no enemy had ever survived such overwhelming force. But the humans were not fighting a normal war. When the Velith fleet arrived at the battle zone, they found the human ships waiting in formation. The two forces faced each other across the cold darkness of space. "Humans," the High Sovereign broadcast. "You have committed an act of genocide. You have murdered 30 million of my people. The galaxy will never forgive you for this crime." Admiral Dohan's response was brief. "We are not asking for forgiveness." The first wave of Night Harvest drones launched from the human ships. Thousands of automated weapons, each one programmed to hunt and destroy. They slammed into the Velith fleet with suicidal precision, sacrificing themselves to take down enemy warships. The battle lasted 12 hours. When it was over, the Velith fleet was scattered and broken. 70% of their warships were destroyed or disabled. But Dohan did not stop to celebrate. "General Sunho," he said, "begin the ground campaign. Target every Velith world." Sunho nodded grimly. "All of them, Admiral?" "All of them." The weeks that followed would become known as the Great Silence. Human forces spread across Velith territory like a plague. They did not conquer. They did not occupy. They simply erased. Lieutenant Omaire spent her days monitoring communications. She heard the Velith panic as world after world went silent. She heard their pleas for help. She heard their anger and their terror. And then she heard nothing at all. One by one, the transmissions stopped. First from the military worlds, then from the industrial centers, then from the farming colonies, then from everywhere. On the 17th day, Myre intercepted a message from the High Sovereign himself. To the human fleet, he broadcast, "I am requesting an immediate ceasefire. The Velith Dominion is prepared to surrender. We will pay any price. Give any concession. Please, stop." Myre sent the message to Admiral Dohan. The Admiral took the call personally. His face appeared on screens across the Velith Dominion, cold and expressionless. "High Sovereign," he said, "I received your surrender offer." "Yes," Vel Thomas replied eagerly. "Whatever you want. Territory. Territory. Resources. Slaves. Name your price, and we will pay it." Dohan was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was like ice. "My daughter was a schoolteacher. She never hurt anyone. She spent her life helping children learn to read and write and dream. When your soldiers came, she tried to protect her students. She tried to protect her own sons." He leaned forward slightly. "Your soldiers laughed while they killed her. They broadcast her death across the galaxy like entertainment. They called it a lesson. They called it putting prey in their place." The High Sovereign began to speak, but Dohan cut him off. "You want to know my price? Here it is. I want my daughter back. I want my grandsons back. I want 4.2 million innocent people back." His voice finally showed emotion. Not anger, not grief. Something darker. "Can you give me that, Sovereign?" Silence. "I did not think so." The transmission ended. The campaign continued. By the end of the third month, the Velith Dominion had ceased to exist. 47 worlds, 80 billion lives, erased so completely that future archaeologists would struggle to prove the species had ever existed. The last Velith world to fall was their home planet, the place where their species was born, where their civilization first rose from primitive hunters to starfaring conquerors. Captain Taiwu led the final ground team to the surface. They walked through empty streets and silent buildings. They found museums filled with Velith art and history, libraries containing thousands of years of knowledge, temples where generations had come to pray. All of it abandoned, all of it dead. Taiwu stood in the central plaza of the capital city and looked up at the sky. The human fleet hung in orbit, waiting for the all-clear. "Captain," Sergeant Jaewon said quietly, "what do we do now?" Taiwu did not answer for a long time. He was thinking about everything he had done, everything he had seen, every Velith face frozen in death, every child who would never grow up. "We go home," he said finally, "and we try to remember how to be human again." Back on the command ship, Admiral Do-hwan watched the final reports come in. Mission complete. Total victory. Complete extermination. He should have felt satisfied. He should have felt vindicated. He should have felt something. But he felt nothing at all. Commander Harry approached him carefully. "Admiral, it is over. The Velith are gone." Do-hwan nodded slowly. "I know. The galaxy is watching. Other species are sending messages. They want to know what we will do next. What are they saying?" Harry hesitated. "They are afraid, sir. Very afraid." Do-hwan turned to look at her. His eyes were empty, hollow, like windows into a house where nothing lived anymore. "Good," he said softly. "Let them be afraid. Let them all be afraid. Because now they know what happens when you hurt our children." He turned back to the window and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, his daughter and grandsons were waiting for him. He could not bring them back. He could not undo what had been done. But he had made sure it would never happen again. The galaxy would never forget this lesson. And neither would humanity. Admiral Park Do-hwan stood on the shore of a small island on Earth, watching the waves crash against the rocks. He had retired 3 months after the campaign ended. The Federation had offered him medals and honors and monuments. He had refused them all. He did not want to be remembered as a hero. He was not sure what he was anymore. The small house behind him was simple and quiet. It had a garden where he grew flowers that his grandsons had loved. Every morning, he tended the plants and thought about 2 small boys who would never see them bloom. His daughter's photograph sat on a shelf inside. He talked to it sometimes, late at night when he could not sleep. He told her about the war. He told her about the things he had done. He asked her if she would forgive him. She never answered. Commander Yoon Harry had taken command of the Federation Defense Fleet. She was harder now, colder than before. The gentle parts of her had been burned away by the things she had witnessed. The things she had ordered. She stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked out at the stars. The galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. In the months since the war ended, not a single alien ship had entered human space. No diplomats. No traders. No tourists. The other species of the galaxy had seen what humanity could do, and they had decided to stay far away. Harry had received messages from distant civilizations. They were careful and polite and very, very frightened. They asked if humanity was planning to expand. They asked what had happened to the Velith. They asked questions that were really just one question. "Are you going to do this to us too?" She had not answered them yet. She was not sure what to say. Dr. Kang Eunji had returned to her laboratory after the war. The weapons she had created were locked away once more, buried in vaults that would hopefully never be opened again. Her assistant, Lee Jung-woo, found her sitting alone in the dark one evening. She was staring at a blank screen, her hands folded in her lap. "Doctor?" he asked carefully. "Are you all right?" She did not look at him. "I have been a scientist for 50 years. I have created medicines that saved millions of lives. I have built technologies that improved countless worlds. I thought I would be remembered for those things." She finally turned to face him. Her eyes were red from crying. "Instead, I will be remembered as the woman who killed 80 billion people." Jung-woo did not know what to say. He sat down beside her and stayed silent. "We did what we had to do," she continued. "That is what everyone says. We had no choice. They started it. They killed our children." She shook her head slowly. "But I keep thinking about the Velith children, the ones who never hurt anyone, the ones who did not know anything about the massacre. They died too. They died because of the weapons I created. Doctor, you cannot blame yourself for... Who should I blame then?" Her voice cracked. "The Admiral? The General? The Federation Council? They made the decision, but I gave them the tools. Without my weapons, none of this would have been possible." She wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. "The Velith are gone. Nothing will bring them back. And nothing will bring our people back either. All we have done is add more death to the universe." She looked at Jung-woo with sad, tired eyes. "That is my legacy now. That is what I will carry until I die." Captain Shin Tai-woo had submitted his resignation 3 times. Each time, General Baek Sun-ho had refused to accept it. "You are too valuable," Sun-ho told him during their last meeting. "The Federation needs soldiers like you." "With respect, General, I'm not sure what kind of soldier I am anymore." Sun-ho was silent for a moment. He had aged a decade in the past year. His hair was completely white now, and his hands trembled slightly when he raised his coffee cup. "Do you know why I refused to let you quit?" he asked finally. Tai-woo shook his head. "Because you feel guilty. Because you question what we did. Because you wonder if we were right." Sun-ho set down his cup. "Those feelings prove that you are still human. That we are all still human. I do not feel human. I feel like a monster. Monsters do not feel guilt, Captain. Monsters do not question. Monsters do not lie awake at night, thinking about the faces of the people they killed." Sun-ho leaned forward. "The guilt you carry is the only proof that we have not lost our souls completely." Tai-woo was quiet for a long time. Then he asked the question that had been haunting him for months. "Were we right, General? Did we do the right thing?" Sun-ho sighed heavily. "I do not know. I truly do not know. But I believe this. We did the only thing we could do. The Velith gave us a choice between extinction and survival. We chose survival. Maybe that makes us monsters. Maybe that makes us survivors. Maybe there is no difference." He stood up and walked to the window. "All I know is this. Our children are safe. Our colonies are secure. The galaxy is afraid of us now, and fear keeps people alive." He turned back to Tai-woo. "Is that worth 80 billion lives?" "I cannot answer that. No one can. But it is the reality we created, and now we have to live with it." Lieutenant Oh My-rae had been promoted twice since the war. She was now the head of the Federation's Long-Range Communications Division. Her job was to listen to the stars and respond to any messages that came from other civilizations. For 2 years, there was only silence. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning, her console beeped with an incoming transmission. It was from a species called Beothrani, who lived on the far side of the galaxy. They had watched the war from a distance and had spent months debating whether to contact humanity. Their message was simple. Are humans safe? My-rae stared at the question for a long time. She thought about everything that had happened. The massacre, the war, the extinction of an entire species. She thought about the people she had lost and the things she had seen. She thought about her own family, still alive and safe on Earth, because humanity had been willing to become something terrible in order to protect them. Finally, she began to type her response. We were safe once. We were kind and gentle and curious. We welcomed strangers and helped those in need. We believed that all species could live together in peace. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. Then the Velith killed 4 million of our people. They murdered our children and laughed about it. They broadcast the screams of dying innocents across the galaxy and called it a lesson. Another pause. So we taught them a different lesson. We showed them what humanity becomes when our mercy runs out, when our kindness is answered with cruelty, when our children are taken from us. She took a deep breath. Are we safe? That depends on you. If you come to us as friends, you will find friends. If you come to us as traitors, you will find traitors. If you come to us as diplomats, you will find diplomats. She finished her message. But if you come to us with violence, if you target our children, if you mistake our mercy for weakness, then you will find nothing. Nothing at all. Because we will erase you so completely that the universe itself will forget you ever existed. She added one final line. The choice is yours. We hope you choose wisely. She sent the message and leaned back in her chair. Across the galaxy, species read her words and understood. Humanity was not the same gentle species they had known before. Something had changed. Something had broken. And in its place was something harder, sharper, and far more dangerous, but also something that still hoped for peace. Something that still wanted to believe in friendship and cooperation and understanding. Humanity had proven it would become monsters. Now it had to prove it could choose not to be. 1,000 years later, historians would still debate the Velith extinction. Some called it justice. Some called it genocide. Some called it the moment humanity lost its innocence forever. But everyone agreed on one thing. The lesson had been learned. By everyone. Humans were kind. Humans were generous. Humans were capable of great love and great compassion. But they were also capable of great darkness. And if you hurt their children, if you mistook their mercy for weakness, if you pushed them past the point of no return, they would teach the stars themselves to fear. And the stars had learned their lesson well.